Hi guys, it's Aoife from Fred We See Died Laughing, and I'm here with a March library haul. So I have a bunch of books here that I got from the library, and I'm going to show you what I have checked out because I'm really excited to read all of them. So the first book I have is The Magic Strings of Frankie Pesto by Mitch Albom. This is his newest book. It came out a few months ago, and I am really excited to read this because I really love all of the other books I have read of Mitch Albom's, and yeah, they're always kind of real magical in a real subtle way, and they're always just really, really lovely to read, and they've really interesting characters, and I can't wait to read this one and see what it's about. It's about, from what I know, it's about this musician, and I think he plays the violin, and every time he starts realising that his music can change people's lives, and every time he changes someone's life with his music, one of his strings turns blue, or something along those lines. So that is all I know, but I'm really excited to read it and find out more. The next book I have is one that I reserved and I can't wait to read it, and it's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and as a lot of people know, the movie is out at the moment and I want to read the book before I see the movie, and I just adore this this edition. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's hardcover, and it has a lovely little like book or page ribbon here. I don't know what they're called. And again, it's kind of illustrated as well in different parts. And yeah, so I'm so excited to read this, even just for the edition it is, because it's absolutely beautiful. The next book is The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. I have heard some interesting things about it. I'm not actually sure what it's about, but I've heard that it is a good book, and it's quite a big book. And yeah, I'm excited to read this one as well, because I actually have no idea what it's about, so I am looking forward to reading it and finding out what it is about. The next book I have here is Tomorrow the Killing. This is the second book in the Lowtown trilogy by Daniel Polanski, and I read the first book, which is Straight Razor Cure, a few years ago, about a year ago or a year and a half ago, and I actually can't quite remember what the first one was about, but it's like about this guy who used to be, I think he used to be in the army. He's like an ex-soldier, and he lives in this like kind of town, and he was raised by this guy who's kind of like the wizard of this town, and that's all I can remember. So I think I'm going to have to go back and try and refresh myself on what happened in the first book, but it's like a very good fantasy series. I remember really enjoying the first book, and so yeah, so it's a fantasy series anyway, so if anyone is looking for more fantasy, this one's probably a good one to pick up. The next book I have is one of my newest favourite fantasy series, and it's The Faithful and the Fallen, and it is the third book called Ruin. I think there's going to be 4 books in this. I thought it was a trilogy, but I think there's actually going to be a 4th one, but I just really, really love this one. It's kind of about this mystical prophecy, and where there's like so many different characters. It's a little bit like Game of Thrones, where there's loads of different characters from all over like different parts of this world, and it's kind of, they're all kind of connected in some way, or they're all kind of involved in this kind of war that's happening. And this one's really, really interesting, I think, because for a lot of the book, or a lot of the series so far, the guy that's like the villain didn't actually realise he was the villain. He thought he was the hero, and it's just a really, really interesting way to read the book, and you're kind of, even though he's a villain, he's doing really bad things, you can't really hate him because he always thought he was doing them for the right reason, because he thought he was actually the hero or the saviour. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. This is the kind of book where some people like, he's not afraid of killing off main characters, and a lot of characters die, and you just get so attached to them and you don't want any of them to die. And yeah, so I'm kind of afraid to read this in case any of my favourite characters die in it, but I can't wait to read it at the same time. The next book I have is another favourite fantasy series of mine, and it is The Silver Tide by Jen Williams. This is the third book in the Copper Promise trilogy. I think it's the Copper Promise trilogy that it's called, but I read The Iron Ghost a few months ago, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it is basically about these 3 kind of mercenaries. There's Wydrin, Sebastian, and then Frith, and it's where they kind of go on all these weird adventures and all these weird things happen. And in the first book, Frith ends up getting kind of weird powers, and yeah, and then there's just all this weird stuff happening, and yeah, so this is kind of the third one. I think this is the last one, so I'm really excited to read it. I think it literally just came out, so I saw it in the library and I literally grabbed it as soon as I could, before anyone else was able to take it, because I can't wait to read this, because I love this series and I love these characters so much, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in this one. The next two books I have weren't really on my radar. I didn't really know anything about them, but I just happened to see them and I thought they looked interesting. This one I actually picked up mostly because of the cover, because I just think the cover is absolutely beautiful. And it is The Crimson Ribbon by Catherine Clements. As far as I know, this is about a story about a woman who was living in Oliver Cromwell's house around the time of the English Civil War in 1646, and it's where she has to leave his house because of everything that's going on, and she ends up having to depend on some soldier that she meets on the road, and she goes and lives with someone called Lizzie Poole, or Elizabeth Poole, who is a real person in history, and so it's kind of about her, but it sounds interesting. The cover is beautiful and I love me a bit of historical fiction, so yeah. And the next is kind of a circusy, fairground kind of read, and it is The Museum of Extraordinary Things by Alice Hoffman. I feel like I've seen this on a few people's channels before, but I'm not 100% sure. But what it is, from what I know from reading the inside cover, is it's about a girl who has grown up in this kind of festival, kind of circus kind of place, and her father runs it, and then she ends up kind of connecting with this guy who's like a photographer, and some things happen and he ends up getting connected in this murder mystery that's going on, and yeah, that's all I know, but it sounds really, really good, and I love kind of those circusy kind of reads because they're just always so kind of magical and mystical in the same way, kind of just ordinary magic kind of thing. Yeah, so I love it. I love these kind of books, so I'm really excited to read this one. And then the last three books I have are, I got them from the library, but they're actually kind of books, my library has kind of a shelf outside in the lobby area where they leave books that they've kind of withdrawn from their shelves, or that people have donated and they don't need, and you basically can, if you see a book you like, you can take it home for keeps. It's not on a loan, it's yours if you see it. So I saw some books that seemed interesting, so I picked them up and brought them home. And the first one is 13 Years Later by Jasper Kent. This is actually the second book in his series, so I think the first book is called 12, and it's something to do with Russia and maybe a Russian civil war or some sort of Russian war. So I'm going to have to read the first one first, which I'm presuming that my library probably has it already. So hopefully they do. I can get it from there and then I can read this. But it just sounds really interesting. So, and I love me some Russia as well. So the next book I have is The Traitor's Wife by Kathleen Kent, and this is something to do with colonial Massachusetts, I think. And it's just I don't know, their life is at risk or something like that. I'm not really sure, but it sounds good, so I'm going to give it a go. And the next book I have here is The Armor of Achilles by Glyn Iliff. I actually don't know how to say that. That looks like Welsh or something. I don't know how to say that second name, so I apologise if I just butchered it. But yeah, this is about the War of Troy. I absolutely adore anything to do with Greek gods or the War of Troy or Achilles and Paris and Helen, and I love all that kind of stuff, so I can't wait to read this. I think this is like the third book in a series or the second book in a series, but I have a feeling that this is the kind of series that you might not have to read the other books. They can kind of stand by themselves as well, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, but I'll probably try and see if they have the other ones in the library that I can check out at some point before I read this one. But it just looked really good, and why not? Why not? So that is all the books I got from the library. Please let me know if you guys have read any of these books, what you think of them, and what you guys are reading at the moment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.